Good morning, folks. I see our attendees cycling in here. If you're here for the WAVE and Broadband Grant Experts webinar, you are absolutely in the right place. We're going to get started in just a couple of moments here. Thank you, folks, so much for joining us this morning. All right. Well, I will kick us off here, folks. Good morning. My name is Zach Hubeck. I'm the Executive Vice President for WAVE. I also have responsibility for MBSI WAVE, our Canadian distributorship. And folks, we really couldn't be more honored that you chose to spend your time with us this morning. We have a great session ahead of us with Broadband Grant Experts. For those of you that are unfamiliar with WAVE, we're a distributor that's about 34 years in age, and we specialize in broadband, everything from fiber to fixed wireless access. We're known as the first Motorola Canopy distributor, and that's how we were introduced to Brian Carlson, who I will introduce in just a moment here. But folks, shipping products is great, and we know logistics like the back of our hand. The one thing we love to do is add value to our partners' lives, bring them tools and partnerships that can help them succeed. And that's what we're here today to discuss with Broadband Grant Experts. So if you are having a hard time navigating the world of state or agriculture or federal grants, our Broadband Grant Experts team here is a strong partnership with WAVE that can help you navigate that and provide you a service where you have a high rate of success in converting some of these grants, because there's plenty of subsidy out there to connect America and bridge the digital divide. So, without further ado, I will introduce Brian Carlson, who's co-founder of Broadband Grant Experts. Brian, the floor is yours, sir. Let's have a great session.
Great. Thank you, Zach, and thank you all for attending. Appreciate your time today. And as Zach had mentioned, we had met during the Motorola Canopy Days. I'm one of the co-founders here of what we call Broadband Grant Experts. It's likely that I've met most of you during the early days of Canopy. So again, thank you for participating today. It's a great opportunity. There's a great inflection point happening in the market as it relates to this funding opportunity. And we'll talk a little bit more about that and what we do to help the process. And then we'll wrap it up with any questions that you may have. On with me are my co-founder colleagues, Jeff Burlock and Michelle Bourgain. So I'm going to ask them to introduce themselves real quick, and then we'll get started. So Jeff?
Yeah, hi, my name is Jeff. I'm Brian's partner. I know Brian from the Motorola Canopy days. I was one of his early customers in Canada. I was the co-founder of a company called ExploreNet Communications, and been doing business with Brian and been in the broadband industry for a long time. Thanks.
And then Michelle?
And I'm Michelle. I'm the COO here at BGE. I've been around these guys in this industry for a long time as well. Spent the last 27 years working for the company Jeff referenced in Canada called Explore, and have lots of experience in managing large construction and service teams across the country for multiple fixed wireless towers, as well as a program office where we manage about $400 million in broadband construction projects. And so lots of experience with grants as well as the industry in general.
All right. Thank you, Michelle and Jeff. So let's kind of get started. So why do we care about grant funding? So a couple of points that we like to stress, and that is the BEAD program, as you probably have heard, is a $42.5 billion program. It's the largest to date. It's historic. They're making correlations to the early days of electrification back in the 30s when the investments were made to build the electric grid. So this is a pretty historic moment. It is the largest to date. You could see some of the other federal programs that came before it, RDOF being one of the larger one before at $9 billion. So it's an order of magnitude bigger. And it's really designed to solve the problem of universal service, to bring internet capabilities and, let's say, acceptable or adequate internet access in areas where people are really struggling. You know, some of these rural areas don't have good access to the internet, and it's an economic development issue. It impacts distance learning, distance healthcare. So that's why we care about the grant funding, because it opens up an opportunity. It's historic. And on top of the federal programs, the grant programs in the states have been coming out and continue to come out in states like Texas and Oklahoma and Washington and so forth. So great opportunity when you look at the combined funding. It again creates an inflection point, meaning that it's an industry turning point that comes with it both opportunity and a threat. And we'll talk about that. But essentially, the government is funding the ability for the awardees to build networks in areas that may already be served by some wireless carriers. So that's the threat part. The opportunity is to take advantage of it, seize the moment, and see if you can participate, not only to build out networks in these areas, but to increase the valuations of your companies. So it's a terrific opportunity in front of all of us. The BEAD program is a government program. I'm assuming many of you have heard of it, are familiar with it. This is a snapshot from the dashboard that the government sends out. The NTIA updates on a regular basis. This was done back on June 14th. So there are 15 states that have passed the process. So this multi-phase process, multi-step process has been going on for the last couple of years. It's really coming to the final stages. So the volume 2 is the final stage. 15 states have achieved that. They have their approval from the NTIA. And then on the bottom, they then go through a pre-application registration process. Some of them are not doing that. Some of them are. It depends on the state. They have a challenge process. Some of them have already concluded that process. And then at some point, they will publish the requirements and the rules as it relates to submitting applications. So some of these states we expect in the maybe late summer, fall timeframe that we'll see some of these applications being published for grant applicants then to respond. Yeah, probably have maybe 45 to 60 days to respond, and then continue with the process. So it's coming at us now. It's coming to the kind of the last turn, and it's a great opportunity. What's needed to be successful? It is complex. So that's one of the things that we're trying to do, is to demystify it, take away the complexity, and basically help with the heavy lifting as it relates to these grant applications. But you know, the scoring is complex. Every one of these grants, whether it's a state grant or the BEAD grant, whatever, there's usually kind of a scoring matrix that the agency uses in order to rank and to compare the different applications. So it's important to understand the scoring. We're all over the scoring when we look at our process. And it includes many of the things that you see on the screen here on the left. And then really it's taking that knowledge and then all the other requirements that are in the document when that is published by the state. Some of these documents are quite large, could be 2 to 250 page documents. Some of these sections you almost need you do need an attorney to interpret some of the sections, but that's the kind of thing that goes on with these grants. And if you can sort through all of that and have really secure the help needed for this type of thing, then it could be a very compelling result for your business. The complexities, these are examples. So when you look at this diagram, there are all kinds of sections that will need to be addressed in the application. So for BEAD specifically, looking at the area to do geospatial analysis, certainly you have to come up with a network design. You need a really solid business case. Will it make money? Does it make sense to go after the area that you define, or maybe the state has predefined areas where you need to submit a bid? But essentially, you're going to go do all this analysis to figure out where do you spend the time and can you make money on it. And then there are other requirements, things like letters of credit, matching requirement, financials need to be audited. They'll require plans for disaster recovery, cybersecurity, supply chain risk management, and so forth. And then, there are other aspects of this, Buy America, Build America, for the equipment and the manufacturers that you need to use in your sourcing. So a lot of these requirements and complexities need to be thought through in order to submit a winning and a compelling grant application. When we talk to our clients across the country, these challenges are common. ISPs are really faced with these challenges, and one of the biggest ones is that the government, in essence, is becoming, in a sense, a competitor. So if you've got an unlicensed fixed wireless network today, that's classified as an unserved area in the rural area, then the government is making funding available for someone to build a network in that area, and they're leaning toward fiber. So the first rounds of these things are going to be fiber leaning as it relates to the BEAD program anyway. So that's one thing to keep in mind, is that that is a concern, but it opens up an opportunity to not only look at participating in that program with a fiber deployment, but also to drive up the valuations of your companies. Another big challenge is identifying the best areas with the strongest business case and having a tool set to be able to do that quickly and have the flexibility to make changes, look at the business case, does it make sense? So being able to iterate that quickly is an important thing. The third thing is just lacking the software tools to be able to do all that, from the front end analysis to the network design and mapping and doing the business case and being able to iterate, as I mentioned. And then finally, having the time and also having the confidence to go into this eyes wide open, that you have a good plan, a good foundation, and then you have a good, compelling application that puts you in the best possibility and probability of winning. So what we do at Broadband Grant Experts is that we combine all of this experience and the tool sets that we've done over the last 20 years as it relates to this. So, when Jeff and Michelle introduced themselves and talked about Explore in Canada, that was a large rural ISP, over 500,000 subscribers, and at that time was probably the largest rural ISP on the planet. They, along with another company called Wireless 2020, which was their engineering firm they worked with, put together hundreds of grant applications and secured together over $2 billion in funding, both between the US and Canada. Wireless 2020, along that journey, and along with Jeff and Michelle, had built a system to be able to do all this in an automated, integrated way. So doing the analysis in the front end, the mapping required, the network design, this tool to do a 1,000-point network design in 20 seconds, all that information then goes into a business case tool so that you can then determine what the economic value is in that area. Or if it's a predefined area, you could still do the economic value and see what it's all about. All of that's done, and you can iterate that over and over again. So the power of that tool is substantial. 40 man years have gone into that tool, and it's being used by some of the biggest operators in the country, where they will license that tool. With our relationship with Wireless 2020, since they're part of this program with us, that we make that tool, the results of that tool, available, and we use it on your behalf. And then all of that information then goes into the grant process. And the grant process team is being headed up by another gentleman who's not on this call, but well known in the industry, Fred Campbell. And Fred was the wireless bureau chief for the FCC and was responsible for many of the auctions over the years. So he brings to the party this view of how to do a grant application from a regulatory point of view and what the regulatory body in the state is going to be expecting. So, so we have this kind of unique combination of experiences in building a large ISP. We've seen it all. We've raised a lot of money. We've done a lot of grant applications, and we have a unique system that helps the process. So that's what we're all about. And certainly we're in business to make money, but it really, when we look at our one of our guiding principles is how do we help this industry, the 3,700 ISPs in the United States, navigate this process so that they win and they participate and they can actually win and build their company. So we're really, like we did in the early days, we really want to enable this industry in order to take advantage of this opportunity. I'm going to turn it over to Jeff. He's going to just talk a little bit about what this tool can do. And Jeff, over to you.
Sure, thanks, Brian. Yeah, so basically, as Brian said, we use the tool set from Wireless 2020, and basically we go through four components. So in the top left is a geospatial mapping. We start there. So we the purpose is to get grants. So we have 160 million records in our database, and we know where all the households are that are served and unserved, and basically grant eligible rooftops. And we are able to cluster, do analysis and cluster these rooftops together. So we search them. We can slice and dice the data by state, by county, by provider, by speed, many ways. And we work with you as a client to, in your area, find the grant eligible locations. Once we get clusters of those locations, as Brian mentioned, we have an automated fiber design tool, and we can quickly create a fiber design showing what the business case would be for each one of these fiber networks. And we can run that, and typically, you know, that engineering takes a long time. We take the time out of the engineering and focus on iterating the clusters so that we can orient them to be a positive business case. So we can modify them, we can add to them, take away from them. And once we have the economic fiber areas defined, we then can say, well, what would be left over if you want to do a hybrid bid? Then if you're one of those customers, we can see what's left over and how could we enhance the fiber design with a wireless design to enable a hybrid bid if that's what you desire. And in the end, we get a total combination of those two things. Next slide. Once we have all that, we turn in a business case. We have a business case tool, which is dynamic, where we can do sensitivity analysis on your business, whether it's your ARPU, your penetration, or your return desires. And we take the output of these technical designs and run them through a business case so that you and your investors can have a look to see what areas make sense for you as a company to bid on. And once we have all that done and you're comfortable with the areas that you would like to bid, we'll move that into the process of grant writing as Brian has described. Next slide.
Yeah, I think this is, I don't know if I'm posing a question or just making a statement here, but I think, you know, when we look at the state and federal policymakers, their vernacular and languages, underserved and unserved. And really, this is a really powerful tool to each rooftops showing this is an unserved area, this is an underserved area. These are the areas that have previously been saturated with CAF or RDOF funding previously, and you're just showing our service provider customers on the line. This is your snapshot, and this is where you can be successful. Is that a good summation?
Yeah. So the way the unserved is defined by the federal agency, but it includes, it doesn't take out all the other grants, RDOF and CAF. And what we do is we take the unserved, take all the other grants out, and we create something called a grant eligible rooftop, which means that all the rules have been applied, all the exceptions have been applied, and what's left over is what can generate you grant.
Awesome.
And we come up with a grant eligible term.
Cool.
And
Thank you.
That's not a process for the faint at heart, by the way.
So yeah, and then with all of that information that Jeff just took you through, then we go into the process. And so, Michelle, do you want to describe our process?
Sure. So as Jeff and Brian both mentioned, this is a process that we've developed over time. We've kind of fine-tuned this, but I think one of the most important things about this process, it is iterative and it is adapted to our clients. So what we do is we start off the process by looking at our clients' data, understanding where they are, where you might like to expand, where you might like to cover, what your current network looks like. So we gather all of that data. We take that, look at those specific areas, and then determine what the rules are for any particular grant that we're looking at that any given time. So I would say that this process, we can do this for state grants, for federal grants, it applies to all of them. We would be looking for a lot of feedback. So again, like I said, it is iterative in nature. So we will go through each of these stages, but we start to incorporate feedback from our customers and we embed it in the process so that we can get to the most practical application possible. So we start out, like I said, by doing a kickoff. We'll set expectations with customers, understand how often we're going to meet and what we're going to accomplish in each session. We'll talk about grant eligible locations and determine what the areas of focus are going to be. In phase 2, we'll start to take those grant eligible areas and define clusters. So identify opportunities, areas that we want to look at, and then we'll start to do fiber miles analysis. So Jeff mentioned we can do a fiber mile analysis, again, in an iterative fashion. So we can look at it. If something doesn't make sense, we'll go back and look at it a second time until we get the process exactly right. Once we have fiber miles and we understand what that looks like, we'll start to do the business case analysis. We'll do some, again, iteration through each of the clusters to get to the most appropriate business case. We will then go through an approval process to make sure that we have everyone's input and we've all decided on the same application areas. And then we will finally put together the grant application package. This all comes back to what we talked about in the beginning, which is understanding the scoring. The package is going to be very targeted at creating a really high score so that we've increased our opportunity for win. Once we know what that looks like, our team will help to prepare the actual grant application, helping with some of the verbiage and again, in a way that we would expect a regulator to want to see it. So we really take that perspective so that we have the best chance of winning. So that's just a high level overview of the process that we use with all of our customers. And like I said, again, this is tailored to our customers based on the experience that we've had over a number of years in the industry.
No, that's great, Michelle. And I would just say that we're now exercising this process with quite a few ISPs around the country to get ready for BEAD. So this process does take some time to work. So now is the time to do it. You don't want to wait until the rules are published and you got 30 days to do this. It's too late in order to create a compelling winning application. So now's the time to think about this, to get prepared, to work through these things. Decisions have to be made. There are some gating items that have to be done. We've actually applied this process to the state grants. So we got things going on now in motion with a lot of BEAD preparation. In the meantime, there are state grants that are going through this process all the way through it and then awarding it. So I have an example of that, a recent success story, if you will, with VistaBeam in Nebraska. So working with WAV and VistaBeam, we essentially had put together for a Nebraska state grant, not BEAD, but a Nebraska state grant. And by the way, any work that we've done for the state grant, we will certainly use for the BEAD process. So it's a good foundation for when BEAD becomes published in Nebraska. But the challenges with VistaBeam were pretty simple. I mean, they tried grants, they lost some grants. They're running a business like all of you, and they didn't have much time. They tried to put together what they could. Understanding the requirements was challenging. And certainly going through the analysis and the design and the business case and all that, it takes time. The content for the grant and maximize scoring. Those are all challenges that the team faced, when they looked at past grants and and we're essentially not successful with many of those grants. Recently, we engaged with them to look at the recent Nebraska grant, and there were 9 applications that we worked on. They won all 9 applications. So it was a very significant win for them. It resulted in almost $10 million of grant funding. In fact, the scoring was so high that they almost got all of the allocation that the state had made available, but the state Public Utility Commission couldn't award all the money to VistaBeam. So they essentially negotiated with VistaBeam and put VistaBeam in a very good position to negotiate with the office there in Nebraska on the areas that they really wanted. So it was a very successful process. Now they're in a position to pursue the next round of the Nebraska grant, and they're looking at some other states that they're providing service in. They had the best application. They had a solid business case. The content was obviously great. And at the end of the day, because we took a lot of the heavy lifting off their shoulders, we weren't disruptive. It wasn't a disruptive process in running their business today. So it's a great success story, and that's the type of thing that we're doing with ISPs across the country. We've recently worked on a few USDA Reconnect grants. We've worked on a few up in Oregon for the Oregon State Grant. We anticipate Oklahoma is going to be announcing their state grant. As the BEAD program continues to walk through the process, these state grants are coming out. So a great success story, and hopefully gives you an idea of what we can do here.
Yeah, Brian, just a quick comment. If you could go back one slide,
Yes.
A lot of our service provider customers, when you talk about some of the challenges that they were having, that 4th bullet right below challenges, just one more slide, Brian, sorry. When you look at that analysis, design, and business case, we've heard from a lot of our service provider customers that, hey, I've got to deploy a team of engineers, a team of people to analyze my counties, and what are some grant eligible rooftops, as Jeff eloquently stated. And this could take 2 to 3 weeks in just that 4th bullet point alone. And with Wireless 2020 and Broadband Grant Experts, that is compressed into hours. And Brian and Jeff, let me know if I'm overstating that, but you take all of the guesswork out, you're very objective with the data, and it is in a fraction of the time. Yes?
Yeah, absolutely. Jeff, do you want to make a comment? I know you have a pretty strong opinion on this.
Yeah, look, I think it's it takes the time. We're not we have a lot of experience, but we don't pretend that we're better than any of our customers. It's just our customers have a business to run. So those things take a long time to do. We do them on their behalf. We have a great tool set which allows them to efficiently and turn them many times and present them back to the business. We never tell a business what to do. We simply gather the data, present it in a format where they can make decisions. So and when you're running a business and you got outages and customers and all those things to take care of, it's hard to take many hours of your senior resources out of your business and do this. And we provide that. We provide that and come alongside your business to do that for you.
And then the other point I would just make on then closing on that idea is that because it's a integrated tool set, you can do these iterations quickly. And that's the thing, is to be able, you make a change on the front end, you say, hey, I want to pick up these other homes in this area. I want to see what happens with the design. I want to see what happens with the business case. It flows through the system. So iterations become not a time-consuming effort. It becomes an advantage, because now you can begin to modify the area that you want to target, and then look at the impact of the design and business case quickly. So, so both of you made it. It's a great point. My last slide and my offer to all of you is this. We want to use this tool obviously, if we work with you, but what we want to do upfront at no cost to you is to do a preliminary analysis of your area. So if you contact me, and my contact information is there, Brian Carlson, and my email address and phone number. What we'll do is we'll use the tool, we'll do a preliminary analysis, and what that will show you is the grant eligibility in your area. We'll look at your footprint, we'll look at the counties that you touch, we'll look at the 10-mile buffer outside of your footprint, the 30-mile buffer, and then show you the numbers. You'll see it visually, but show you the numbers. And what the grant eligibility means is we're netting out all of the federal grants that are not eligible areas. And then we're using the most current fabric data from the FCC in order to identify that opportunity. And the reason we do this is really to answer the question, and for both you and us, is there opportunity? Is there a reason to even go after a grant? And if the opportunity comes back with nice results, in other words, a good number of households that are eligible, as well as the funding, then there's an opportunity for you to pursue. And then there's a basis of conversation for us as well, if we can help you. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. Again, it takes us a bit of time to do it, but we're doing that for all of the ISPs that are interested, and we'd be happy to show you what that opportunity is in your area. So Zach, back over to you for maybe some Q&A.
Awesome. Sounds great. Well, I don't see much traffic on the chat. Brian, when you talk about this preliminary analysis, what is that first call? How long does that take?
It's really only a couple of hours of our time because the tool is so powerful. So what we'll do is we will grab your footprint off the FCC site. So if an ISP has, and so most of the ISPs have filed their BDC or their 477, which is simply their footprint to the FCC. Then we take a look at that. So visually you can see that. You can see the overlap of all the federal grants. You can see the different layers, as I mentioned, as far as eligible households within the footprint, within the buffer area, and then what the numbers look like. How many households are we talking about, and what the dollar value of those households are. And most of the results are usually in the 1,000 to several thousand to a few million to hundreds of million dollars of opportunity in a given area. So it takes us a couple hours to go through all that, and then we'll put that together and we'll provide that to anybody that's interested.
All right, wonderful. So what I'm going to do next, folks, I'm going to unmute everybody. And if anyone has any questions for Brian, Michelle, or Jeff, or even myself, please do let us know. So everyone should be unmuted at this time. All right, folks, just a couple more moments here. If you do have any questions for the group, please do let us know. All right, well, that means we were extremely thorough today. Brian, Michelle, and Jeff, thank you so much for the great partnership and providing a really valuable tool set and partnership to all of our service provider customers. Folks, we're here to see you succeed. This is a very exciting time with all of this subsidy, not only at the federal level, but also at the state level. And this is a very, very powerful solution for you folks. So please do reach out to Brian. You can obviously talk to your WAV sales rep as well if you want to get started with this process, and we're happy to make that connection. So thank you guys so much for your time today.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks.